Hello everyone, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to be back at the 3D Motion Show. I would like to thank Matthias and the Maxon team for inviting me back. So let me introduce myself. My name is Mehdi. I am a 3D designer and director living in Paris, in France. In my career, I work on many different projects for the cinema industry, television and video games. But my real passion lies in the creation of personal projects. And I wanted to share with you guys my latest film that allowed me to develop my process in terms of character creation. So let's watch No Mankind. That was No Mankind, and I really hope that you like it. So we are going to talk about character creation and especially portraiture. I'm going to share with you guys my process for creating cinematographic portraits. Here are some examples that what I'm going to share with you guys. So enough talking, let's jump into Cinema 4D. So we are in Cinema 4D now, and we're going to import the model. I'm going to my file explorer, and I'm going to take the base mesh, OBJ, and take the male average head. You have to upscale the model by 100 to have the right scale, otherwise it's going to be too small, right? So now we have the correct scale. Okay, so I'm going to delete the texture. I don't want that, I don't need it, and I'm going to first place the eyeball, because it's going to help us to not be wrong with our volume. So let's create a sphere, downscale it. I'm going to orient this sphere correctly, so 90 degrees, like so. and you can see the mesh, the tip of the sphere is facing us, so this is good. And I'm going to use the symmetry tool, so symmetry, symmetry, and just place the eyeball correctly in their sockets. I think that's fine. And now we're going to make this model more interesting. You can gather as much reference as you want on Pinterest. This is the free version, or you can also dive into Shot Deck and try to have nice references. So I gather my references on the side. I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with his face. Just going to adjust some of his facial feature, and we're going to see what we're going to have at the end. So I'm going to my sculpting layout. Okay, and I'm not going to use a lot of tool. Basically, it's just the draw, grab, the pinch, the knife, and the inflate. I don't use a lot of tool. So the thing I want to do with it is to make it more badass. So this is what I'm going to do. So be kind of careful with all the sculpting phase, because you can get off the rail pretty easily. So it's always good to have kind of a control on what you do with your sculpting and your model. So I want my character to be kind of buff, beefy guy, kind of a killer. So I pressed Alt X to use the symmetry, and I need to subdivide the model once just to make it a sculpting object, and now I can just sculpt my character the way I want. So let's move some shape, and I'm going to fast forward all this part, and we'll see what the result is after all that is done. Okay, so now we're going to kind of make our set, right? So this is going to be a very simple setup. Basically, I'm going to make a wall behind him, and he's going to wear a jacket. Actually, it's going to be the jacket from the free model on the 3D Scan store. So let's start making that. So basically, very simple. Make a plane, right? Just rotate it. Like so. So I'm going to import the jackets. So obj jacket. And remember to scale the imports to 100 centimeters, because otherwise you won't going to have the correct scale. So it opened in the new scene. I'm going to copy paste that into this scene, and now he have a jacket. So we might have to make some adjustments to the jacket, right? Because he's have such a huge neck that it doesn't really fit into the into the jacket. So I'm going just to open a little bit his jacket. Just make few adjustments, very little. So now I think it's good. Okay, so now our character has have a jacket. So I'm going to the settings, in output, and in film aspect I'm going to use the Panavision, okay, which is a 2:39 aspect ratio, and I'm going to lock this ratio and to change the width to 2560. Okay, so I'm going to be sure to have the correct framing by completely make this side panel total black. Okay, so now I can adjust the camera angle, and what I'm going to do here is to make a few, actually basically like 3 camera angle will suffice. So this is the first camera, okay, and we're going to start renaming our scene just to have a clear vision of what we're doing here. So this is, I'm going to call this character Bob, eyeball, and we're going to make kind of a cool eye just in the shading, because we don't really going to use his eyes. That's why this is not a real high setup. Maybe I will do that in the next tutorial, but for now it's just a tool to place his eyeball. The plane is going to be the wall, and this is the jacket. So this is going to be the shot cam 01. Okay, and for portraits, often we tend to use a large focal length, so I never go under 60 basically, because we want to have that really nice flat view of our model. Because if you use, for example, a 15 mm lens you will have a totally different look. This is not a look that I want to have on a cinematic portrait, right? It can have his appeal. It can be pleasing to some people, but for me at least, I don't like that. So I always prefer to have at least an 80 mil focal length. So I duplicate that cam, and this is going to be my second shot cam, and that I'm going to maybe be more frontal with it, like so. Another in which I'm going to be more, and every cam change really the kind of expression of the character. Okay, now we have basically three angle view, and what we can do, the last thing about our scene setup, is to be able to change the orientation of his head. This is something I like to do because I don't really like to have a straight face, because, well, even if it's 3D and everything is kind of fake, subtle change on the model can change the way you view an image. It can be as subtle as a look, a direction of the eye, or just a direction of the head, right? If the guy look at his right, well, that is implying kind of a storytelling, because it look at something, so it make this scene more interesting to watch, okay, than just have his head face forward. That can be boring sometimes. So I don't going to make a setup because it's just an image, but what I'm going to do is to use only two deformer. This is the deformer I use often when I have to make faces. The twist deformer, which is going to allow me to just orient his face left to right, and so let's do that right now. Alright, so I just have to place it like in the angle of his neck, right? Look at that's a nice face. You would say hello to him on the subway, right? So let's back to work. Focus. So I'm going to make that as a child of Bob, and as you can see, if I try to make any changes, it won't work, right? Why? Because the sculpt tag is on, so that does not allow us to make any deformation, but we have an option to allow that, right? So you're going to check the freeze tab and the allow deformation, and now we can have deformation on our model. So the eyes does not follow the twist, so that's normal. What we can do to solve this problem is just to make a group. So we're going to make a null. I'm going to change the name of this null to character, or just Bob, and I'm going to move everything that's related to Bob's face, so his head and his eyes, and make the twist a child of the null object, so like that is going to affect everything below. So now the eye move correctly. Okay, and we're going to having that kind of rotation is cool, but it's not the right it's not very natural. Okay, it's like he's going to pop up his neck like no, this is not the good way to go. We're going to use another deformer, which is the bend. The pro tip, if you stay with the shift key, okay, on the keyboard, if you tap that and you use the bend is going to have the same size of the twist, like that. You won't have to change manually the scale of the bend. So now we can adjust the his neck, his head orientation. So he have a very long neck because the keep length is unchecked. So just check that, and now we can be quite subtle with our neck rotation, right? So now you can look up, you can look down, and you have to be careful about this kind of deformation, you see. Okay, so be aware of that. The thing that can really impact your model is the deformation, I'm sorry, is the order in which you use the bend and twist. So if I put the twist above the bend, the deformation will be better that way. And another pro tip, if you lose your camera angle, okay, you can always go to view, and the shortcut for that is Control Shift Z, but since I use Parsec to make this tutorial, I don't have that option, so I'm just going to click manually there to kind of get back my camera angle. So now I'm good, right? I can deform the head. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that direction right there. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do about the scene is the eye. So as I told you before, I didn't really focus on the eye because I want him to have kind of a mechanical eye. Okay, like Batu in Ghost in the Shell, for example, and he has that really iconic look with his round metallic tech robot eyes. So I would like to make that kind of character. So going to place the eye in his head and make few adjustments in the sculpt just to make it fit correctly. So we're going to use a okay, so for his eyes I'm going to use a free pack of kit bash made by a very kind person. His name is Nikita M on ArtStation. So you should go to his profile, maybe subscribe, or I don't know, but he made those pack for free and he give them away, so that's awesome. So you have a lot of small parts here that you can adjust to make something, and he made some more of a complete kit. Right, so the thing that caught my eye is this model. So I downloaded the pack. You can, if you want, pay for that, but try it first, okay? And if you like the pack, you just buy the thing. Okay, so the adjustments are done. So now we're going to go to the fun part of our cinematic portraits, which is the shading and lighting. So how to make a skin texture, how to use the high quality map from 3D Scan Store. So let's start doing that. Now I'm going to create my first shader, which is the universal shader. Now my interface is finally complete, and from that moment on I can really focus on the skin shader. I'm going to drag and drop my universal material onto the character. I'm going to activate Octane, so now nothing very much interesting there. The thing that's going to help me to make a good skin shader is basically to hide everything that I don't need to right now, so basically the background. I'm going to use a camera more close to the character to make sure that everything's quite alright. So this camera will do the trick. And I'm going to use an HDRI. So the HDRI is very bright. The thing that we're going to do first is decrease the amount of the power of the light. Now I'm going to make few adjustments to the kernel, because right now it uses the direct lighting, and I'm going to use the path tracing to have a very good result. It comes with basically ridiculous values, so I'm going to decrease that. So now I can work on my skin shader. So now I can work on my skin material. I'm going to double click. on my material, and I'm going to uncheck the albedo. I'm going to increase the value into the roughness to 0.5. I'm going to change the color in the transmission to white, and I'm going to go to medium and click on random walk. From that moment I'm going to use the octane node editor. Now I'm going to adjust the scattering in my character. So I'm going to change the albedo color in the random walk node, and I make that white. Now I'm going to use the RGB spectrum and use a reddish color to make basically the blood, and plug that into the radius. So now we have a reddish color. And finally I'm going to change the density of the skin to make it something more natural. So I think 400 is good enough. Now I can import my maps. So I'm going to plug the color in the transmission. So now it's very dark, that's normal, that's just the gamma interpretation, so we just have to decrease this value to 1. Or if you want to make it brighter, you can go below that, .8 or even .5. Now I'm going to plug this specular. The only thing I'm going to change with this one is the type, because it has a bluish tint and I don't need that. I need that to be black and white, so I'm going to change that to float. I'm going to increase the value in the IOR to make it more glossy. Okay. And now I'm going to use the normal map and plug that into normal. We can increase this value maybe to 2. Like that you can see a lot of detail that come out, but it can be a little bit too strong. So let's say 1.5. And the glossiness is going to be plugged in into roughness. Okay. So from that moment you can make as much tweak as you want. For me, I'm just going to adjust the color of the skin. So I think 1 was a correct value. Maybe 0.8. I think that's good. So now that I'm happy with the skin shader, what I'm going to do is to work on the eyes. I'm going to create a glossy material, put that value to 1, the index, like that we're going to have a fully metallic shadow, and I'm going to increase the roughness to 0.4. I'm going to drag that into my eye objects, So now everything is metal. And now I'm going to change this material to something transparent. So material, create specular material. I'm going to select the right object. So I'm going to disable the symmetry. So now this is transparent, and I'm going to change the color, the material, I'm sorry, to the very center sphere here to something emissive. Material, create, diffuse, drag and drop into here, and make it a emission material. Now it's a bit too strong. I'm going to decrease this value. I think this is good enough. I can now enable the symmetry and work on the metal material. So now I'm going to use an imperfection map. And plug that into the roughness. You can of course adjust the roughness with a color correction. On which I'm going to increase the contrast and play with the gamma. If you want to be more precise, what you can do is to basically isolate the color correction to see only that into your viewer. So now we can see correctly what are we doing. Going to adjust the size of the map. Something like that. And when I'm happy with the results, I can just disable the solder node. Okay, so now I'm pretty happy with the results. And for the last parts of the shader of the character, so the last thing I'm going to create in material is the jacket. So now I selected a view that enables me to see correctly what I'm doing with the jacket. So for this one I'm just going to use a glossy material. Drag and drop that. I'm going to drag that into the jacket and start plugging my maps. I'm going to play with the index to see if I can have a better results. I'm thinking I'm happy with that. So now that the character shader is basically done, what I can do is play with the lights and the light setups. So I'm going to disable my Octane Sky. The problem now is we have a very white background, so I'm going to change that to black. So I'm going into the Octane settings, go to environment and change that color to black. Now I'm going to be able to use my lights correctly. So area lights, you can see that it worked correctly. And now I'm going to show you how I set up my lights. So first of all, I always like to lock my camera, and I'm going to use the light as a camera. Like that, I'm going to be very precise on where I place my camera and where I want my light to hit my character. So with the Octane light selected, I'm going to use with Shift C selected as camera. So selected object as camera is very useful tool that allow you to be in your lights and play with placement to have the optimal light placements. There's one thing that you have to understand is the bigger the lights, the smoother the shadow is going to be. So if you want something very harsh, very sharp shadows, you have to decrease the size of the light. So if I take my light, go to details and change that to maybe 10, now we can see we have a very much sharper shadow, and you have to increase the power of the light. Okay, and if you want something even sharper, you can always go to maybe like 1, increase the power, and now we're going to have very crisp and very sharp shadows. It all depends of what kind of ambience you want to have for your character and for your scene. So this is one of the way I use lights. Okay, so the other one basically is to have an image projected into the lights. So let's see how I can do that. So I'm going to select my Octane light tag, going into the node editor, select an image, so basically tree and leaves, and I'm going to plug that into distribution. So now we can see a pattern on his face projected from the light, and the only thing I'm going to change is the projection of that image into the light. I'm going to change that projection and use the perspective. Okay, so now basically we use our light like a projector. And remember that if you want something, if you want very hard shadows, you have to decrease the size of the light. So you have to go below 1 centimeters. So let's see 0.2. Increase the power of the light. When it goes into crazy values like that, you can always uncheck surface brightness, okay, and work from there. Okay, and the same method apply. So basically you move the light, okay, like a camera, and you can have the render that you want. You can have a lot of different ambience and lighting setup with that technique. It all depends on what you want to tell in your image. And the last technique is basically to use a full image and project that color ambience onto the character to have something more cinematic. If you have an image and ambience that you really like, you can use that directly into the light and play with settings to have something really cool. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So basically it's the same technique. So I'm going to change this image to an image that I like with an ambience that I really love, which is an image from Blade Runner. And now, as you can see, basically the whole image is projected onto the character. So thank you very much, guys, for being here and watch my tutorial. I hope my English was good enough, and I think we're going to have a quick Q&A with our good friend Matthias. So can't wait to speak with you guys. See ya.